Well, hello and welcome to Galaxy News on Star Set. You're watching Morning Express and I am Biolo Tumguelo. These are your headlines. Ramaphosa's parole announcement to combat the spread of COVID-19 in correctional facilities. Dr. Zweli Mkhize visits the city of Cape Town to assess adherence to health measures to curb COVID-19. The National Council of Churches appeals the unbanning of churches during Level 4 lockdown. And SADTU says the Department of Education is not ready for reopening of schools. Well, hello and welcome again. This hour, Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize on Saturday visited the Western Cape as pressure mounted on the national government to interfere after the province recorded more than a half of the country's COVID-19 infections. Now, the SADTU Health Portfolio Committee Chairperson Sibongiseni Dlomo had called for an urgent intervention in the spread of the virus. Dlomo described the situation as a serious and needed urgent intervention. He further stated that the increasing number of infected people in the province is alarming and calls for drastic measures to be put in place to push back the frontiers of the spread of the virus in the province. Now, this is what the health minister had to say. Let's take a look.
Infection prevention and control is a matter that has to be a second nature for all our health workers. So we will emphasize that, and we've had this discussion here, not only in the Western Cape, but all over the country. Secondly, the issue of ensuring that they are well protected. The provision of the personal protective equipment, PPEs, will make sure that it is made available at the right level based on the exposure of the individual and the protocol that we have issued. We have therefore a commitment to source as much of that PPE so that we always have enough on stock, so no one must be forced to go and look after patients without being properly taken care of. That is another commitment that we have to make. We've even said, and I was briefing now the Premier and the MEC, that we have formed an Occupational Health and Safety Committee, which is involving both the public and private sector, as well as the government officials and the labor, to be working together. And amongst the issues that they must deal with is the issue of the protective gear and making sure that the occupational health and safety issues are taken into account. And therefore, we would like to focus on that issue. We've also discussed, and this is the matter that the MEC has also been very strongly, feels very strongly about, that when it comes to testing when necessary, that will make sure that the health workers are prioritized, so that for their own protection and the protection of the staff, we are able to make sure that we take people into the front line and we know their status, and if necessary, they must be given that necessary attention. We also urge all of them to be able to go out there, health workers, to make sure that they get to be given the flu vaccines. This is an important issue as well, because the flu season is coming. We actually want to make sure that our soldiers in the forefront are both well trained, well protected, and ready to be able to face the outbreak that we are fighting, because they are in the forefront. So I want to leave that point as well, and therefore say, at this point, this is one of the issues that we had to discuss amongst ourselves as the leadership in government. Our approach has been that the outbreak in the Western Cape is an outbreak in South Africa, and therefore it requires all of us to work together.
And the Western Cape has 4,809 infections, followed by Gauteng with 1,910. Its death toll sits at 88, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with 42 deaths. The South African Democratic Teachers Union says the Department of Basic Education is not ready to reopen schools. The union says the department has been unsuccessful in meeting the minimum requirements to guarantee safety to avoid contracting COVID-19. Minister of Basic Education, Njimo Checha, announced on April 30th that the school management teams should report to schools today, which is Monday, the 11th of May 2020. However, SADTU General Secretary Mugwena Moluleka has advised their members not to report for duty until precautions to prevent the spread of coronavirus has been adhered to. In a media briefing last week, Muchecha said the central consideration is that the reopening of schools does not contribute to the spread of the coronavirus, but also that the academic year is saved. She went on to add that the proposed changes to 2020 academic calendar still needs to be approved by the cabinet. Let's take a look at the video where the SADTU spokesperson had to say.
Well, SADTU has been very clear, and it is our view that we've got a very strong moral obligation to send a message to our members that we do not believe that all the minimum requirements that we have set before the Department of Basic Education have been met, and that the system is ready to receive them back into work. This could be the first SMTs members which are expected on the 11th, and then the teachers on the 18th. We are therefore saying to all our members that we do not have any evidence at this stage that the system is ready to receive them back, and therefore we are saying that they should not, at this point in time, be going back to the workplace. Well, I can confirm at this stage that the department has not, in actual fact, got back to us as a collective and taken us into confidence about the state of readiness. That is why we have actually always called for a consultative approach. We have always called for transparency, and we can confirm at this stage that we have not been advised otherwise by the department. What we know is that on the 30th of April, the Minister of Basic Education went onto a social contract with all South Africans and said that certain things are going to be met by the employer in time for us to go back to work. And right now, we do not have any evidence as a union that indeed that has been met. And therefore, we are saying that our members should stay at home, they should stay safe until we advise them otherwise.
In a statement on Friday, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that the selected groups of offenders will be released on parole in line with the World Health Organization's call for countries to reduce prison populations to control the spread of COVID-19 at correctional services facilities. The country's correctional facilities are overcrowded with a population of 155,000 inmates. It is estimated that about 19,000 will be released, though the decision is welcomed by some others as they fear that this decision will lead to the increase of criminal activities. Let's take a look.
On what types of crimes were committed by these offenders. They were all petty crimes, and one could describe it as crimes of need that was committed by these offenders. We have ensured that we had carefully scrutinized the categories as well as the individuals to ensure that there are no violent criminals as part of this group of offenders. On the issue of petty crimes, here we're really looking at crimes such as minor crimes such as shoplifting, theft, trespassing. So it's really minor crimes that we are looking at in that instance.
And earlier I had a chance to speak with the spokesperson of Correctional Services, Singaba Kongumalo, regarding this matter, and these are our deliberation. Let's take a look.
Okay, thank you for inviting us. Perhaps it's important to highlight that indeed it's inmates categorized to be of low risk. Roughly it will be around 19,000. And how it will happen is that we'll not wake up in the morning and open the gates and everybody walks out, or the 19,000. But each case should be dealt within its own merits, meaning the parole board will have to consider all those individual cases. So they'll be looking at the preparedness of that particular person having to be reintegrated to society, and looking at the offense that he or she may have committed, the type of programs that this person may have benefited for. And then if they deem that this person is ready to be placed back into society, they will then do so. But they will also have to attach certain conditions which this particular parolee will have to comply with. But also in addition to that, we'll also do fingerprinting and DNA, something which will be taken by the SAPS. This is just to ensure that the people that we're placing out, it's people that were almost certain that they're of low risk. Because you may find that you may have been detained for a petty offense, only to learn later that you committed a number of other offenses, but you were never tried for, even if you may be found to be on the wanted list by the SAPS. So it's important that we run that DNA matching and also the fingerprinting process.
Now, Mr. Ngumane, the process will take up to 10 weeks, and then the prisoners will have to finish their sentences at home. Has the thought of having now the victims that are at home and now this person coming out and having to deal with the person who violated them, has that been in thought, and how is the government going to get this together?
We gave ourselves 10 weeks, but this may even stretch beyond 10 weeks because we wouldn't want to take chances or release people prematurely. Hence, it's important that all due processes are followed. This also talks to victim-offender dialogue or victim participation. Due to lockdown regulations, we will have to come up with other means in a smart way to say how best can the victims participate, either by in form of writing or video conferencing or other means that we'll have to deploy, but no one will be placed out without the victim having been given a chance to say something. We also appreciate the fact that a number of them, it's not easy to locate, but we try our utmost best utilizing our auxiliary social workers to locate them, so that at the end of the day, the system is just and fair to every South African citizen.
And Morning Express goes to a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Bishop Joshua Maponga as the National Council of Churches has appealed to President Cyril Ramaphosa to allow church gatherings during the less strict of level 4. When we come back, more of this matter.
Uthando nokuzikhandla kanye nokusebenza ngokubambisana ikona kanye kuzosiza ekuthenini sikwazi ukulisana negciwane le-coronavirus.
Kila mtu anaweza kubeba virusi hivi vya corona.
I don't see wetin dey happen for town now. Coronavirus dey kpai people like say no tomorrow.
Social distancing is the new etiquette. Least we never forget.
Dulang Khaye and help
to stop the spread of this virus.
I'm here to plead with you guys, but you know what? Use a mask.
Wash your hands with soap and sanitizer and keep the good spirit.
Make you always wash your hand before you fear.
Dlala indima yakho.
It's not just for you, it's for the next person, ukoko, umkhulu, your uncle.
Healthcare workers stay at home so that they may see their homes too.
Well, as we are facing a pandemic, Galaxy News on Starset is pledging you to not just to protect yourself, but to protect others and the people you love. Now, the National Council of Churches has appealed to President Cyril Ramaphosa to allow church gatherings during the less restrictive level 4 of the nationwide lockdown that is currently in place. The council says it has written to the president requesting him to allow churches to operate the same way schools would be allowed to reopen under the lockdown. While the president of the council, Dr. Monokwane Hlobo, says the church has a role to play during this time. And joining me in this matter, we're joined by Bishop Joshua Maponga, who will further elaborate why is there a need for churches to operate at this difficult time during the COVID-19 pandemic. And welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your time. Now, please do elaborate from us, how will the churches and as the whole in South Africa try to work together to and curb this COVID-19 virus?
I think for too long the church has been an entertainment center where people go for some sort of spiritual euphoria. And unless the church is coming in to bring solutions to the problem, they might actually end up being the problem to the whole catastrophe that we're facing. So my suggestion and my small little 2 cents worth is that unless and until the church has learned to become a clean place where people wash their hands and sanitize and do everything else, it would be irresponsible to think that we can use faith to deal with COVID-19 when actually we needed to have applied health principles.
Now, looking at how a lot of people are busy voicing out their voices and also crying out, saying that they want the churches to open, how is the isolation, or how will isolation be done and also be done inside the church? How are pastors going to do this?
I'm not very much 100% in support of the opening of the churches and coming back together. The best church ever is what we experienced during COVID, which is the family church, where people must be sitting in their homes and having worship together with their own children. The whole business of a group of people gathering together and one man grabbing money to eat for himself, and we call that church. That's a business. So, and I think maybe on that note, we cannot just say we open up churches for the cosmetic purposes of survival of ministers, rather than for the preservation of the community.
Now, Bishop, a lot of pastors and also bishops from a lot of several churches in South Africa have been voicing out and also pledging the congregants to take out their tithes, to give out and all those things. And in this time, there's a lot of people that do not have jobs, that do not have any means of income. How is it possible for pastors or bishops to pledge to congregants to give out tithes?
Total mischief. Pastors must not terrorize people during lockdown. Even in the Bible, during the times of crisis, the members were allowed to eat the tithe. So I think it is this moment that we must be clear between sustaining a structure and sustaining a member. And the true church is a member, not a building.
Not a building. Now, there's also the talking also. We've seen Dr. Zweli Mkhize over the past weekend, where he sat down with indigenous healers, where they're going to come up with ways or means of them becoming essential service workers. We've seen a lot of their patients suffering at this time. How do you think the South African government and also the Minister of Health, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, could try and help our indigenous healers, at least to get permits to work? Because a lot of their patients need to see them. And then a lot of their herbs, they need to, you might have to go to a forest, or you need to go somewhere where you can get these herbs. How is this going to be done in a way that you think it's a better...
The colonial system has made hospitals our health system. The indigenous method is that our forests and our bushes are our hospitals. My first advice to the Honorable Minister, he must take a trip to Madagascar or make an order of the herbs that have been found in Madagascar to deal with corona, and then find a way of how do we indigenize that and make it contextual. But you cannot open up a pharmaceutical company, which is because it's European, and there's some multinationals have interest in pharmaceuticals, and our own indigenous hospitals, which are our clinics, where right now we can get all our herbs for steaming and everything else, have been closed. I asked that the pharmaceuticals open up, and including our indigenous shops, they must also be open.
Now, what we've seen when it comes to the indigenous herbs, and also what is happening in Madagascar, where they have allowed indigenous healers and also to work with the government, where they go and dig up umhlonyane. We've heard that they're selling umhlonyane. It's the same thing that as us as Africans, we have our own that plant at home. It is said that now it's being sold by $40, and our government has actually had asked for these pastors, or also had ordered this medication to come to Africa. We have all these things. We have our indigenous healers, and we have people that know about this knowledge. What can be done so that the government can really see that our indigenous healers are the people that might have the answers?
I call for the closure of all the institutions that we have, particularly in the pharmacology and toxicology department, across all universities, was for the first time they've been proven that they're non-functional. If we have local mhlonyana around, and you can have the hybrid from Madagascar, what do you lose by taking the local medication, local herbs, benchmark it with what Madagascar is doing, and we produce our own local South African mhlonyana. So it's clear that there's an economic side of the coronavirus where the big multinational pharmaceuticals want to do a big rollout of the vaccines and the medication that they can produce from their own countries, when some of the problems have always been indigenous in terms of their solutions.
Now, we've heard Khuluso Lunduku this morning, who's the General Secretary of Lupasa, where he was saying that they had sat down with the Minister of Health, and they're hoping that good things are going to come out of that weekend. But we've seen a lot of indigenous healers writing letters to the Department of Health, writing letters to Dr. Zwelim Kiza when it comes to them working with the pharmacies, working with the hospitals. And still, all those voices, all those letters fell on deaf ears. What do you think we as Africans and we as the indigenous healers and the people that we know that they can help us in this time of the pandemic, what can we do to help save ourselves? Because we can't really depend on the government.
It's a fact that the government is not working for the people. They are working for other people. Because if they are working for the people, the question is, where are the people? What are their problems? And what are their solutions? Now, if the people you are said to be leading are now begging you to have access of services of what they want, the question is that the few of you who have locked yourself in a room saying you are the government, who are you serving exactly?
Now, before I let you go, Bishop, in your own view and in your own perspective, as the traditional, indigenous traditional healers, and also we've seen their struggles. We've seen them not being able to go and dig up their herbs. We've seen them not being able to help their people. In your own view, in your own point, how can the traditional healers help themselves in this time of the pandemic? I mean, they also need your sanitizers, all these things. And I think it has to be a government that comes to them in a way where they can provide the sanitizers, they can provide these masks for them. And they've been doing this on their own, but what can be done? What can we do on our own so that the government can see that this is something that we really know and that we're proud of as Africans?
There's nothing holding us back as Africans to dig back a little bit into our background and find those solutions. Number one, for the government, for example, it would be nice to take that 500 billion that you received, take about 3 or 5 billion of it, inject it directly into the businesses of the poor people who are making the masks, give them the spec. Imagine the difference which 200,000 would make to an old woman in Sisheho who has a direct order from the government to supply that. Secondly, when it comes to indigenous medicines, it's a shame that even after independence, the indigenous people are still classified under Witchcraft Act. So truly, I think the discussion and conversation of our parliament is of comrade, out of order, section 5, subsection 6, the real issues of the Africans have not yet been dealt with the democratic system. And I think it's high time we kill the spider so that we don't have to worry about cleaning cobwebs.
Bishop, thank you so much for that insight. We do appreciate your time with us right here on Morning Express. Well, that was Bishop giving us an insight. Well, I'm hoping that you at home will also have your view, and you can go to our website and also go to all our social media platforms to voice out your view. And what do you think should be done when it comes to indigenous healers? Do you think our governments need to sit down again and also put the traditional indigenous traditional healers as essential service workers? It's time for us to quickly go to a short break. When we come back, more news follow right here on Morning Express.
Uthando nokuzikhandla kanye nokusebenza ngokubambisana ikona kanye kuzosiza ekuthenini sikwazi ukulisana negciwane le-coronavirus.
Kila mtu anaweza kubeba virusi hivi vya corona.
Una don't see wetin dey happen for town now. Coronavirus dey kpai people like say no tomorrow.
Social distancing is the new etiquette. Least we never forget.
Dulang Khaye and help
to stop the spread of this virus.
I'm here to plead with you guys, but you know what? Use a mask.
Wash your hands with soap and sanitizer and keep the good spirit.
Make you always wash your hand before you fear.
Dlala indima yakho.
It's not just for you, it's for the next person, ugogo, umkhulu, your uncle.
Healthcare workers stay at home so that they may see their homes too.
Well, as we are facing a pandemic, Galaxy News on StarSet is pledging you to not just to protect yourself, but to protect others and the people you love.
I dive deep into the web for all the news and information that I can grab, so that you at home can stay entertained and informed by our 5-star studded crew.
Galaxy News is distinctly rooted in your location to bring you the lowdown on all the spiciest news in town.
We make it our business to bring in news in time, because it is your business that makes news each time.
Galaxy Universal News kuphathela indaba zishushu.
Sinilethele indaba eyishisayo ukusuka nokuhlala isiqalo nesiphetho asikhethi ihlangothi futhi ke asiqambi namanga sizokutshela zona bukhoma khona la ku Galaxy News. Galaxy News. Galaxy News.
From Galaxy News.
Woo!
We spoke to Bishop Mponga. Now, Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio has accused the main opposite party, All People's Congress, of orchestrating a number of violent occurrences and puts the efforts by the country to contain the COVID-19 outbreak at risk. 18 people have died in 3 riots in separate parts of the country in recent weeks, including a disturbance of Freetown Central Prison on April 29th, which still started after an inmate tested positive for the virus. Let's take a look at the video.
The pith and substance of the rather diabolic, sinister and inflammatory press release seeks to generate hate and disaffection towards the Commission of Inquiry, to instigate and or afford persons of interest to the Commission the opportunity to escape justice on the eve of the commencement of the Commissions in January 2019.
This latest drama is setting up a dangerous standoff between the government and the opposition. The government also threatens the leadership of the APC of legal actions in case of any ethnic violence in the country.
Let it therefore be noted that government will hold the APC leadership, including its chairman and leader, to bear the greatest responsibility for any such invited ethnic violence. Accordingly, the government will invite the International Criminal Court, ICC, to investigate and prosecute the APC leadership for fanning the embers of ethnic violence or xenophobia.
And in your sports stories, soccer's English Premier League outfit Brighton Hove and Albanian confirmed on Sunday that a third unnamed first-team player tested positive for the coronavirus on Saturday. In a televised interview on Sky Sports, Segula's chief executive Paul Barber expressed a dire concern for the players, saying that despite all of the measures that the club has taken over the past few weeks, that somehow the virus managed to seep its way into the club. Earlier in the year, the club had announced that 2 players had tested positive for COVID-19. It is understood that the 2 players who remain unnamed for a fear of stigmatization have since recovered. Baba added that the club wants to make sure that they do everything they can to ensure that protocols are in place for safety and security of the players and staff to mitigate the risk of infection. The news also came a day ahead of the EPL club's meeting on Monday to discuss a project restart which could see the remainder of the 92 Premier League fixtures played without spectators at neutral venues. An idea opposed by Baba, who has argued that this would financially prejudice the smaller teams. And that's it from us right here on Morning Express. Remember, you're watching Galaxy News on StarSet with my team right here. We'll see you guys again tomorrow.